Hello, man. I'm Philip Beverly, the full leader for the upcoming Mid-Atlantic weekend in October, which is literally just a few weeks away. We're coming up on our first staff meeting. As you know, there's going to be changes on the weekend to what you may have been familiar with for the past few years. So I wanted to talk a little bit before we meet and give you some context for those changes, sort of the why would we change something. Well, change is the only constant in life, and the NWTA is part of that. But essentially it's this. We've been telling ourselves for the last 35 years at least that the NWTA is an initiation. I don't believe that it's an initiation per se. I believe that it's a rite of passage. Imagine that being like a bowl, right? That container, that rite of passage container, holds a little kernel in there, and that kernel is what emerges and grows into that arc of initiation. So the rite of passage is what holds and generates the initiatory process if we're to do it right. Every initiation that has been studied by scholars for over 100 years has come to some pretty solid conclusions. There are essentially four elements to an initiation. First is separation from the mother capital M, the feminine. Second is confronting one's own mortality, dealing with death. Third is an ordeal or a test. And fourth is moving from the I, the little boy space of I want, I need, to the initiated man space of we. So moving from the I to the we. And all these changes that we're doing to the weekend mostly involve flow, first of all, just putting the things that already exist in their sort of proper order to follow that arc of initiation. And then the other two, and those are the first two precepts, are done to bring the experience more in line with the traditional initiation. Now understand, traditional initiations can last from 3 weeks to 2 years in some cultures. And we have 2 days. And so time is really precious for us. And so any change that we make has got to think about, are we doing this for the benefit of the initiates, for the quality of their experience? Because if we had 3 weeks with the technologies that we have, imagine what we could do. But we don't have that kind of time. So some of what we're doing is simply opening the energetic or psychic space for the man, so that in that fourth sort of phase of initiation, the integration, post-weekend, the rest of the man's life, that those precepts will be there as things the man can use to evolve themselves and really contribute to their growth. So that includes like 5 minutes during the course of the weekend to deal with the feminine. Some men have argued with me that it's not enough. Some say, oh, but this is a men's weekend, and it's like, okay. And I'm just looking at what have scholars said about the initiatory experience. The second one, sort of a major introduction, if you will, is being much more intentional about what we call on the weekend memento mori. Remember, you will die. Confronting one's own mortality gives a sense of urgency to life. The little boy, because he's a little boy, thinks he's going to live forever. And so he doesn't ever have to consider that this is finite. And what meaning is my life because I have a finite amount of time to live it? The Polynesians say it's your kuleana, your sacred purpose. What is your sacred purpose? The man's goal is to find that out. The little boy could be less than concerned about that. So that's one of the other things that we do. Another thing that we do is just a shift in the flow of the weekend. And that's moving mission from Saturday, the second day, to Sunday, right after the gift, when the man ideally is in the most empowered and uplifting and open space, ready to take on everything, including his mission, not rooted in the little boy's wound, but rooted in this bigger connection to self and everything else. That's just a flow piece. Mission is critical to us on the weekend. I would question whether it was an NWTA if something happened, oh, we can't do mission. Yeah, we have to do mission. It's that critical. But where it is, how it lands and impacts is really important. Another element that's part of initiatory experience that I need the staff's help on is ritual naming. And I can give you some background when we meet about how my thinking has evolved on this alongside how the organization has had to evolve around this. And I think you might be pretty interested in that. And that is definitely something that we'll talk about. But ritual names are important. And please understand, ritual names are not nicknames. Nicknames that you picked up in the military, or nicknames that you picked up at your college fraternity, or nicknames that you picked up on the job, those are not ritual names. And we'll have some conversation about that. So I'm excited, and I have to tell you, and you'll hear me say it 50 times before the weekend is over. Staff, be in the pit. Be in the pit. Be in the pit. That's the most important thing. Be in the pit. Look forward to seeing you. Bring your questions. Bring your comments. Let's get this weekend done. Thanks, man.